is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast here with my bro, M-Fly.
What's up?
Matthew. What is up, dude?
What's up?
We just got back from mule hunting last week. Archery kicked off early last week here in South Dakota. And so we went out. We missed the opener, but we went out the next few days. And we got it done.
Yeah, quickly.
Second day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome, dude. And our first velvet mule deer.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Footage is freaking sweet. It was...
I haven't even looked at it, really.
Yeah,
so
I've looked at it like 20 times.
we reviewed it a little bit when we got back to the house there, but that's all I've done. I've just glanced at it, really.
And kind of one of those short stories. I mean, we only hunted the one morning, and then we went out the next morning. We found that deer again, and we were done by 1 o'clock.
Yeah. On
that second day, we shot him late morning, and packed him up and got him out of there. So a short story, but those are kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm digging it. And that deer, actually, we had footage of 2 years ago. The big mainframe 3x3 actually put off a couple little stickers, made him look kind of cool. Put off a fork and then a sticker. But dude, it was awesome, and we got to reminiscing a little bit about mule deer and how mule deer have been really like our passion and driving force. Like, we do tons of different hunts, but it seems like we gravitate back to trying to find big mule deer, and that's the thing that really gets us excited. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that today. We were chatting about how we've grown just in like the way we hunt, from when we were little to just 5 years ago to these past several years, of how we've adjusted our hunting style, learned, figured out what works really well to find greater odds of success.
Right.
And we wanted to share some of that. But let's start, dude. We talk about, you find that passion of mule deer hunting. What was do you remember your first mule deer kill?
Yeah. So, I don't know, what was legal age to be able to hunt?
Was it 12 or 14?
12 or 14.
Yeah, I think it was 12.
Either way, my first deer, we were hunting down south of town there. Mm-hmm. And we were up on this knoll. I don't know if you or Dad had already scouted it probably, or we got told to go down that direction.
I think I had already killed my deer that year.
Okay.
Yep.
So me and Dad went down, and I was sitting up on a knoll kind of, and Dad was sitting down the hill to my right a little bit.
It's the highest point of the property, I think, if that's the piece you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah. And so I was sitting there, I don't know, a couple hours maybe, or who knows how long, 2 or 3 hours, and getting dark, and a few deer come up, and I'm young, so any deer looks big. Any deer with antlers looks big.
Especially mule deer.
Right. And so I remember, I don't really remember if I was like really cold or anything. I just remember sitting there, seeing these deer come up, and I was by myself, so it was really like kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. Like, okay, I gotta.
So Dad was on one side of the knoll glassing, you were kind of on the other side. So you weren't that far apart.
Probably like 100 yards or something.
But you were sitting alone.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was sitting up on this knoll, and I saw him come up, and so I moved to get a little better positioning, moved down the hill a little bit, and I just sat on my butt and put my rifle between my legs. It was like a 120-yard shot, I think, was all. And just drilled him, and dropped him, I think he lived for 20 seconds, and double lunged him, I remember.
Okay, yep.
And I just sat there, just waited, because I knew Dad was hunting too. He had a tag, I didn't want to mess his hunt up, so I just sat there, and half hour later, get a little darker, Dad comes up, and he's asking if I saw any deer. I'm like, yeah, I got one down. He's like, you did? He's like, why didn't you come get me? I'm like, didn't want to mess up your hunt.
Yeah.
So we went down there and, checked him out. But he was like a little 4x5 with like a little acorn on one of his
Okay, I can't remember if that was your first deer or if the Forky was your first deer.
Yep, little 4x5, I think.
Yeah, and he wasn't bad.
Pretty respectful for a first deer.
Yeah, he wasn't a dink. He wasn't a monster. And
No.
there was some monsters down there.
Yeah.
I remember that was like one of the nights that I didn't go. I had gone with you like almost every single previous hunt. And I had already killed a pretty nice, actually I think it's the one on the top right, mule deer back there. Okay. I had killed him the week before, but there was a giant that was with him, and I actually meant to shoot the other one, and they were fighting and sparring.
Okay.
And I was like 100 yards from, low light. It was almost, legal time was almost out, and they were kind of spinning around sparring, and I shot the wrong one. And he was still a nice deer, but the other one was way bigger, and I remember like, we hunted that week, and I kept trying to get you on him, and we saw him, and like, you were short, you were like 12, and you couldn't see over the grass one day, and you couldn't get shot, and I remember he was like 80 yards away. I was so pissed off at you, because I was like, he's a good deer, like, he was really wide, like, he would be one of the biggest deer down here.
That's funny.
Like, and then there was a white, like, that same day, I remember we were down in this, like, valley in that tall grass, and a big whitetail, like 160-inch whitetail, came cruising through, and again, you couldn't like see him. I'm like, dude, he's right here. He was like 60 yards out in front, just like cruising for does. You were just like a small little dude, and I remember thinking like, I shot a smaller deer than these two deer that just cruised through. I was like so mad, but then you got home that night with him, and I was like, that's pretty cool, and you told me the story.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like, you haven't shot a ton of whitetail, have you?
I've only shot one, I think.
That one from like 739 on Justin's gun?
Yeah. No, I have another one. I've shot two.
So you shot two whitetails? Yeah. Okay, so you shot way more mule deer than whitetail.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I mean, that's always how we've been. Like,
it's pretty typical for South Dakota probably, isn't it? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know, coin flip here. Okay. You know, what people like.
I suppose.
I went through a stage where all I wanted to shoot was whitetail, but then I always end up back at mule deer, and like, whitetail just don't get me near as excited as a big mule deer. Dude, my first deer, well, it's funny because your first deer was a mule deer, my first deer was a mule deer too. Yeah. We were hunting over by Okoton, so like out a little further west of town. Same thing. First hunt, and I remember one of the rog hares let us hunt on their property on this little piece, and I like snuck over this little dam grade. His dad saw some deer, so he sent me over to sneak up on this dam grade, and he went a different way to glass. And I had a lever action 30-30 open sights. Like, I was obsessed with John Wayne, dude. So like, I wanted that type of gun, and I snuck over, and there was this little 3x3 mule deer, and I thought he was a giant, like biggest. I mean, because he was puffed up, you know, like in the rut. But I thought he was just huge. I look at now, just like a dink little rat.
Just a little guy.
But it was like so cool, you know. You're 12, 13, whatever age, and I thought he was just a monster. And I remember just having that buck fever, like my heart rate was through the roof. I had to get myself to calm down, and I shot and dropped him. Like, I was pumped, and about 100, 120 yards, same as you, and just from there, it just built that excitement of mule deer, and I've killed way more mule deer over the years than whitetail. Yeah. Just one of those things. What were you shooting when you shot yours? What
shooting a 243. Had like a 1x12 on it or something. Yeah. But yeah, it was 243.
Isn't that crazy, the gear difference of what we had now? I was open sights.
Yeah.
You were like a cheap 1x scope that probably costs $60 at Shields now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we actually talked about this with Dad. It's kind of what stemmed this conversation of how our hunting has just changed with gear over the years and how it has become more successful. Like, we talked about those hunts early on. We didn't have rangefinders.
Right.
You know, like, I was shooting Grandpa's 270 on that hunt that year. And yeah, same thing. It had like a 1x8 or a 1x12 scope on it or something.
Just had to guess the range.
And you know,
my shoulder.
Yeah, and I remember like on some of those spots where we would hike up to in glass, we would like walk out and step off like 100 yards out there, and we'd kind of know where 100 was, and then we would, you know, you would just try to double that and guess if it was going to be 2 or 3, and you would go off your ammo box that would say, the ammo boxes would have the drop of that bullet at 200, 300, and 400.
Right.
And so, like, if you had 12 inches of drop at 300 yards, you were like, okay, it's zeroed. I have this gun zeroed in at 200. Or back then, we probably zeroed everything at 100.
Right.
So you have, like, 12.7 inches of drop. You're like, okay, if I hold my crosshairs on his top of his back, I'll drill him. Like, and that was still guessing that he was actually at 300. Yeah. Because we didn't have rangefinders.
It was kind of just like instinct almost, a little bit. Like,
we killed deer doing it.
I know we did.
We missed deer doing it too. You know? But it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So that's actually like, let's talk about that as we're getting into this. For us, let's talk about tactics, and maybe not so much tactics, but just things we've done to help us be successful mule deer hunters that we want to share with everybody else. Like things that help increase your success hunting mule deer. As a hunter, and for you even, like, you've learned a ton. You've been filming so much over the years. You've filmed more big deer get killed. Yeah. More big mule deer than most guys have probably seen some of these deer. And so you've learned a ton on that has just correlated into your hunting. So let's get into some of that today. First one being, since we're kind of already talking about gear, let's talk about gear. On your perspective on how your gear changes, what are some of the things in gear that you use that you think will increase guys' success out in the field for mule deer? Any type of mule deer hunting that you see fit.
I think a good boot will prolong will save your energy a little bit because your ankles aren't going to hurt. You're not going to roll your ankles.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have what do we have? We have Kenetrex, or what do we have?
Switch. We have Crispies right now.
Crispies, yes. So
yeah.
As soon as I switched to Crispies here a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I don't ever roll my ankles anymore.
It's just a boot that we found that fit our feet.
Yeah.
They work well for us.
They work for us.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then Sitka works really well for us. I know you used to use like Cryptic. You really like that, I remember. But Sitka's layering system and like their clothing just fits me really well. It's a tall, thin guy.
Yeah, you're tall, slender.
Right.
Yep.
And so their stuff fits amazing. It's it doesn't tear. Like all the stuff. It just on cold days, it's easy to throw on a light, really warm jacket or pants.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sitting glassing, all those things make your days less miserable. If you're just scouting or waiting for a deer to show up.
Yes.
Or having light, warm gear from a good camo company on.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the making your days less miserable. And I get it from a hunter's standpoint that only hunts a weekend. They go out on the opener, hunt 2 or 3 days. I get maybe not having that gear.
Yeah.
For guys who are spending more time out in the field, guys like us who are, extended days in the field a year, many hunts, you're right, it makes it less miserable. And like you said, you also nailed it when you said the layering system. I've heard a lot of guys that are like, dude, I had a Kuiu jacket or a Sitka jacket. It didn't keep me warm at all. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not. You don't just put on the jacket and it's warm. It's their entire system.
Right.
That way, when I hike from the truck, and we hike for an hour, and then I get there, I can hike with just my base layers.
Yep.
And it's cold out, but it keeps the weather off my skin. I'm warm because I'm moving, but I'm not working up this massive sweat. So that when I sit down, I can keep everything off for the first 10 minutes, cool off. I can throw on one layer, sit for another 10, 15 minutes, throw on another layer, and then I'm good.
Right.
And honestly, and we're not paid by any of these companies. We use multiple companies' gear. We're not sponsored by any clothing companies. It has been, our gear in that sense has been part of the reason why we've killed some of the deer we have.
Yeah.
Wizard, my biggest mule deer, dude, those are some miserably cold, windy days.
Yeah, if we didn't have the right gear on, we probably would have packed up and left early on several hunts.
Couldn't have made it. It's miserable out there, but it's you're a little less miserable where you can withstand it.
Yep.
It's this sucks, but I'm not
not freezing.
I'm not dying.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can stick this out a little longer. And when you're sitting out there 4 or 5, on some of these areas we hunt, we hike in, and you spend for us, we drive down from where we sleep. We drive out to where we need to go. Mm-hmm. It's an hour drive, and then it's an hour 15 hike.
Yeah.
And we want to hike in the dark because we don't want to bump stuff. So you're looking at about 2:45, 2 hours and 45 minutes to 3 hours before legal time starts that you have to leave, plus 15 minutes getting out of bed, grab a coffee. So over 3 hours, we're leaving the house, before legal time, which is 30 minutes before sunup. So you're losing sleep already. And so we don't drive back and forth. You're out there all day.
Right.
So you have to be ready for that weather and be able to withstand it. And that gear has enabled us to do that, which has enabled us to shoot some big deer.
To be successful.
And if that's what you're equating success to in this term, that's what we are. It did in that deer, that big deer back here. It did in your biggest mule deer that you shot on that. A lot of these deer we're talking about public land deer.
Yeah.
We were hunting in -15 that year. Matthew had a tag, and the camera, literally the tripod, I had part of a metal handle snap because it was frozen. Everything was freezing. I don't know how we got that camera to stay on.
I don't either. That's
season
incredible.
2, I think. People can go back and watch it. Season 2 was Matthew's mule deer hunt. And he shot a mule deer. It was like negative 15 and windy. Nobody else was out hunting.
No.
We probably should not have been out hunting. But you shot a great mule deer.
Yeah, so cool.
On a tiny piece of public.
Yeah.
It was epic. In the snow.
I still remember how cold that was. It was just a blizzard, too.
That was rough cold, man. Rough cold.
Yeah.
But, again, enabled us to keep out in those elements to shoot a heck of a deer. So I agree, a good pair of boots that fit your feet, not just a pair that you think is popular that somebody you look up to wears. Go find boots that fit your specific feet, because there's a ton of different boot companies out there. They're all great.
Right.
They make great boots now. Technology is awesome. But find one that fits you, that you're not getting slippage, that just works. The gear, and lastly, to me, I think even optics.
Yep.
In a lot of these spots that we're walking to and glassing, we're spotting these deer from a long ways away.
Right.
And so optics with a tripod. A lot of guys are up glassing, but they're holding their binos.
Yep.
And I remember I used to do that, and then finally I switched to tripod, and all of a sudden I was finding animals.
Yep. The extra bit of movement, and then you can actually see that little bit of movement from the deer.
Yeah, and you're starting to pick out actual tips of horns in the bushes, and
right.
ears, and you're seeing just the front of their face behind a little cut.
Yeah.
And so getting a tripod, even if you don't have big glass, just putting your glass on a tripod.
Yeah.
The proper gear like that will help you turn up more game.
Yeah.
For sure. And obviously, for us, the way we are, some of our tactics with the spot and stock, bedding them down, which we'll get into, the optics plays a huge role in just being able to sit back where you're at and watch them from a distance. And then finally, I think, obviously proper packs.
Yeah. A pack that doesn't weigh on your shoulders.
Yes.
A pack that sits on your hips and, keeps the weight up.
Keeps the weight up. Exactly. Because if you're planning on putting on miles, if that's the style of mule deer hunting you're doing, you're going to have to pack them out, obviously. Yeah. And it's nothing new to many of you, but one, don't go cheap on a pack. I think that's something worth spending money on. Yeah. And again, finding one that fits your torso, because everybody's torso is built a little goofy, so find that pack that fits you. I found my pack, and it's a light pack. I don't like carrying any extra weight. There's some companies that make some big, heavy packs. They're awesome. They're durable. But I try to find that happy medium of durability and weight. For me, the Kuiu packs, I don't have a ton of Kuiu gear, but I love my Kuiu pack. I have, their framing system and then a couple different bags that I can swap out, depending on how big the hunt is. But man, I don't know. I like their pack. Yeah. I've read reviews that, people didn't like their durability, but I packed out a lot of elk and a lot of full mule deer, and I've never had, knock on wood,
right,
haven't had an issue. I think we need to get you one. Yeah. Because your pack's broken down and crap. We need to get rid of that thing.
Yeah. It's seen some miles.
It's old. It was one of Sitka's first bigger packs, and it's outdated. We need to move you into either I'd like to try the new Sitka Mountain Hauler. We should either get you that or just get you a Kuiu frame. Yeah. One or the other, but that kind of moves up on the gear. Another tactic that I think makes a big difference is where you're hunting. Now let's break that down, because everybody's like, well, duh. But the expectation of the deer you're after has to match where you're at. Right. We've hunted some stuff that when we started hunting it early, there was big deer on there. There's not so much anymore. No. Things change, whether it be food plots in the general area or just food sources, cover. We've seen a property that we used to hunt growing up, south where we grew up, completely change over the last 5 years. Yeah. It doesn't hold the deer that it held, doesn't have the quality of bucks. Yeah. It used to be, I would put it at some probably the 2,500 best acres in central South Dakota. Yeah. And now it's still awesome, but it does the buck quality. I saved so many pictures from the early 2000s,
There's some big deer down there.
Oh, monsters. Yeah. And it's just, but things change on how things are, whether, food sources around are different, the cover different. If it's grazed heavier by cattle, it just changes. So having your proper expectation of where you're hunting to the size of deer you're at. If there's no 180 deer there, you can't hold out for a 180 deer. Right.
Just wasting your time.
It's just wasting your time. So having that proper expectation. But that being said, I've hunted in some areas. These couple of big deer that we have down here, they were the only good deer in that area. We knew they were there though because we've seen them.
Yeah.
We've scouted them. And so we passed up a lot of average deer that were good deer other places, and actually probably pretty good deer in those areas, but we knew there was one or two really good ones. And so having that patience to get into that. But I think one of the biggest tactics we can get into today is spot and stock tactics. That is the way we hunt, rifle and archery, is our biggest way of hunting. And then breaking it down from there, if you're going to wait for them to bed down or if you're not going to wait for them to bed down.
Sure.
So from a cameraman's perspective, you do a lot of sitting and spotting anyway, right?
Yeah.
So that's how, we're getting up in there. We're sitting up. We're like have these high points that we go to. We have to sit out in long durations. And then we sit there. What's the biggest thing, dude, you've learned with hunting with me when you're spotting deer? Like if we're going to go after them or not?
So we'll go to a high point and we'll sit and say we find something. We'll wait for them to go bed up. And that could be, 5 minutes, could be a couple hours, depending on when we see them. And then from there, it's whether they're in a killable spot or not. And then, whether they are or aren't, it's kind of decide if we want to risk, depending on how many days we have left to hunt, we'll decide from there if we want to risk pushing that, or pushing the deer, and messing up the hunt for the foreseeable future maybe.
Yeah.
And so, it's all like kind of ratio based. If they're in a really good spot that we know, we see the lay of the land and we can work around them or creep up on them from a certain angle, we'll go creep up on them and stalk them.
Yeah.
But, if they're not really in a killable spot or the way the land is weird, we don't think there's a high chance of getting up on them without them seeing us. Like, we just won't risk pushing them out.
Yeah, we just don't even go after them that day. Yeah. Which can be hard, and I think it's hard for a lot of guys to not, they see the deer there that they want to shoot, and then, but don't go after it. Like,
right.
It is tough.
Yeah.
I get it. I think a lot of our videos have shown, though, like, how it can work in your favor so much. And we've talked about this in the past. You're totally right. We did this last week.
Yep.
The buck I ended up killing, we watched him for hours the day before.
Yep. And we went home, we decided not to push him.
Yeah, he went in an area where we knew we're not gonna get a shot. We're gonna blow him out of there. He's got a couple other bucks with him, and we're not gonna get in there.
Yeah.
Obviously you have to think about wind too. How's the wind blowing when you're sneaking in?
If there's does around them, those does are
or bucks.
Watchy sons of guns.
Yeah, watchy sons of guns. You're here first, folks. But you're totally right, man. You nailed that with, if they're in a killable spot, like you're 100% right. But the other thing too is like, and I was just talking to another guy about this, was how many days you have to hunt.
Yep.
If you are on your last day, obviously you're gonna make that move.
Yeah, you have to go for it.
Yep. And you mentioned that like ratio based. You're totally right. And you're right. Like if they're like we had days. We chose not to go in, right? Because we don't mess it up for foreseeable future. So if you have days, if you have time, just don't go after them. Be patient. Try to glass up another deer. Because especially early season like this, if they're not buggered up, as Delmer used to say, our great uncle Delmer, if they're not buggered up, they're not gonna go far from where they're. You're gonna find them close to there the next day.
Yep.
And give yourself a chance. And for example, the next day we went in and we spotted this same buck again, about not quite a half mile from where we saw him the day before. We watched him, we lost him, found him again 3 hours later, and bedded him up. And he made a huge mistake and bedded up in like the most killable spot ever.
Yeah.
Where we have killed a couple other mule deer the same way. Right when he went in there, I looked at Matthew and I'm like, he's already dead.
Yeah,
like, don't go in there, dude.
He said it like 3 or 4 times.
Yep, you want to go in there, you're gonna die. Why are you going in there? And dude, I mean, he just meandered up in there. They take a little time to bed because they're trying to get comfortable and be safe too.
He probably took at least 30 minutes to lay down.
I think
he went and stood in there, just stood.
Yep, there's this big crevasse, and he just went in there, and he went to the very back. He wanted to bed in the back, but it was like, after we went in and looked, it was just too tight.
Yeah.
And he like sat there and just stared at it. He's like, how can I do it? And then he turned around and kind of worked back out of the finger, looked up at a couple other spots, like kept just looking like he wanted to go up and bed on this little shelf, but he was like, it was too steep, and he was like, how am I gonna get up there?
Yeah.
And finally he just like gave up and plopped down in the center of it and stared. He had the wind blowing down, so he had the wind at his back. He could smell everything behind him, and he just stared up where he wanted to go sit, and he just like, I mean, you still had to be really sneaky to get in there, but it gave us a chance at like anywhere from a 30 to a 5-yard shot, depending on how you approached it.
Yep.
And so if you're patient and you sit back and you wait for him to get in a spot like that, or you wait for him to bed in a bush where you can come around one side, you know, behind him to the side and have good wind, like you can kill deer consistently if you just do that. Instead of being like, oh, they bedded down in this, we've done this, where they've bed down these little, you know, these little fingers of trees, and you're like, oh, there's no trees, we'll get in there and we'll be able to see them. And you get in there and the sun's overhead and there's so many shadows and leaves, and you're like, and then they blow out and they're only like 30 yards from you, but you're like, I swear I looked right there. You just don't see them when they're in that thick stuff. It's really tough. So get them in those killable spots before you go after them is, I think, the biggest thing. So that covers the bedding them down. I'm a huge fan of bedding them down, giving them a little time, let them get relaxed, let them feel safe, and then go in there and end their life real fast. You know, there's another, and so we hunt a lot of mornings when it's archery mule deer. Rifle, we hunt morning and night all day. But archery, we kind of focus on mornings. We don't hunt a lot of nights. No. You know, if we do, we're just glassing, or obviously if we're on a big road trip or something, we hunt all day. But around home, we're hunting mornings pretty much exclusively. That leaves the door open. I'm like, okay, well, so if you're not going to bed them up, you know, so if you're hunting evenings, you're not going to have them bedded up, right? They're already up, they're moving, they're eating, they're transitioning, right, from their bedding to food source, typically. So how are you going to kill them? For us, it's one of those things, I guess if you had those deer patterned a little bit in the early season, you kind of know where they're going. Don't even go where you're watching them. Go to where they're probably going to go and just risk it that way and hope that they show up. That's what when we've done that. We've done that a few times. We've never had it really work out on a big mule deer. You know, we've come really close. Down on some stuff that used to be public, that's not anymore. But we had some good hunts doing that. The other way is if you can even use that tactic in the morning. Like if you can kind of see how the deer are moving, or they're just meandering one way, and you know, okay, they're probably headed to this to bed. If you can get down to there first, again, you risk missing them. Not seeing them where they actually go if they don't go that way, and losing tabs on them. But if they do move where you think they're going to move,
you're already set up.
You're set up, and you might get yourself a good deer. So it is a good tactic. And if you're on limited time where you only have 3 days, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to hunt, and you want to hunt all day, it's a great tactic to utilize. Add it to your arsenal, is, you know, and that's really how you elk hunt. That's how Justin elk hunts was this morning. We're not going and finding elk. We are going to where the elk are going. And we're beating them there. You know, we've seen elk, we're beating them to the next spot. And we've applied some of those tactics to mule deer hunting when needed. Even
when we're on an elk trail, Justin knows all their paths. And like, if he starts seeing them go this way, we'll be like, all right, we'll cut them off, and we'll just go the opposite way and get in front of them.
Oh yeah.
Like it's really amazing to watch, like how Justin's brain works, and just he knows how elk work.
It is,
it's phenomenal.
And so apply that to mule deer hunting. And where you're hunting, hunt the same, like, unless it's just garbage and you're like, this is not going to turn up an animal. But if it's okay and you're seeing deer, like, try to hunt the same spots a few years and learn, like, and that's one of the reasons we've had success and we've killed some monsters in some of the areas we have, is because we've been able to hunt the same spots multiple years in a row, or we've chosen to. And so we've learned how the deer move in those spots, where they're bedding up on certain winds. Like, we have a certain wind, we know exactly where those deer are going to be most of the time, and it proves right 90% of the time. And so, like, you're gaining data. Data and intel is your friend, right? I mean, that's why people use trail cameras. They're gaining data and intel. Same thing. If you can hunt in the same areas year after year, give it a shot. You're going to learn, and then you're going to be able to put yourself in killable positions. And that makes it fun. And let's be real, like, it's fun when you're getting some harvests. Like, we all love to hunt, but you need some success. Like, it's fun to have that success.
Yep, get that meat in the freezer.
Yeah, get your hands around some horn. I mean, whatever it is. I mean, it's fun. It makes it brings the excitement and the fire into it as well. We all need success. So the other thing too is like what we're shooting. You know what I mean? Our shooting equipment, whether it be rifle or archery, making sure that what we have is adequate to our standard again.
Yep.
You know, if your standard is shoot 20-yard shots, have gear that matches that.
Yep.
If your standard is to be able to sit up on a knoll with a long-range rifle and shoot 600, don't have a 1x8 scope like we used to have growing up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Have the proper gear for what you plan on doing.
Yep.
And then, you know, obviously practice and execute. And that's made a huge difference in our success too, is obviously technology of everything has gotten better. The bow, I finally found, I went through a little stage where like I had bad bow juju. I just didn't like the bow I was shooting. I was cheap and I didn't want to go buy new. I didn't have the money either. You know, and finally I just sold it all. I started fresh, did a bow build, and I found a bow that I really like. And it's made all the difference too. You know, same with the rifle. You know, we had Travis from TS Customs build us a custom rifle, and now we're way better shooters. We still miss shots. We got video of that, but you know what I mean. It's made a difference though in our confidence, and when your confidence is higher, it breeds better success. It just does. You know, you're able to do things at a way higher successful rate. So, dude, and you've made some crazy shots.
Yeah,
you made some good shots. It's incredible. So. Dude, we talked about the patience. Obviously, we kind of keyed into that elsewhere. I was going to talk about that separately, but we keyed into it so many times. Just be patient. Mule deer have a sixth sense.
Yeah,
they will ghost you.
Yep.
So you have to be patient. You have to give yourself time. You know, always extra time, and just try to stick it out. Be out there longer. I had a buddy last year. You know, we killed this other big mule deer in this other spot. The same spot as Wizard, and I had a buddy text me. He's like, we spent 4 or 5 days on Wizard. I killed the other one in a day. Just got lucky. But after we killed Wizard, he's like, dude, I don't know how you sit out there all day on the fifth day. He's like, I always have that intention, but I get to like second day and I'm kind of just like bored. You know what I mean? You just have to be willing to put in time.
Yeah.
If you want that caliber of deer sometimes, and you have to pass up other deer to do it.
So I mean, if you're looking for a higher caliber deer, I mean they're smarter. They know how to not be seen.
Yes.
And they usually only let themselves be seen for a few minutes a day.
They're always out at night.
Yes.
They're nocturnal.
Yep.
And you get them a few days a year where they get a little stupid.
Yep.
And you're right. It's like Grandpa always used to say, like, well, once that sun's gonna hit them, they don't let the sun hit their horns.
Yeah.
They're they're bedded back up somewhere. Yeah. You know, and it's just you gotta give yourself the chance of being out and let them make that mistake, and then you have to execute off their mistake.
Yeah.
So, anything else, dude, that we kind of missed on being successful? Some tips on helping people's success out in the field.
You know, if you're wanting to get into hunting, like just get yourself a tag, apply, or buy an over the counter if you can somewhere.
Yeah.
And just go do the experience, because experience is key too. I mean, just do a little bit of studying, you know, like we've said a lot here. Jordan knows way more than I do, but I mean, like, just get yourself experience. Just get out in the field and do it.
Yeah, you can listen to 20 podcasts about this. Obviously, this is probably, I don't listen to much other podcasts. I doubt this is the first podcast put out that has mule deer stalking tactic. You know what I mean? It's just not. Like, everybody has a podcast now. So, you can listen to 50 of these. It doesn't make you better.
Right.
It gains you knowledge, and you can apply it, but you got to get out. I think that's a great technique. You just got to start
get out
doing.
And apply that knowledge then.
Yes, we're also caught up in always like reading or listening and learning that way, but part of learning is going out and doing it, making mistakes, and learning from that.
Yep.
The best way. That is the best way. Last key point. Got to have fun.
Yeah.
We've made it miserable on ourselves before, and trust me, there's times where you have to.
Yeah.
It's just part of it, like if you want a big deer. But you gotta have some fun with it too. You know what I mean? If it's not fun, it's not worth doing.
No.
So there's got to be always some fun intertwined with all of it. So, anything else?
I don't think so.
Thanks for jumping on the show today, dude. Yeah. I'm pumped. We got to do something a little different today. Have some success out in the field last week, which is a great way to start season 8 on that first velvet mule deer that we got to shoot with the bow. It was epic. 4 yards over the top of him, and we got in on him. It was pretty cool. I can't wait to release the footage for you guys.
Yeah.
Matthew laid it down really good, and everything just executed well, and it's just fun. Like, I feel like I have way better luck when you're filming me. Just need you to keep filming me. So it's awesome. We'll release that later on here. Either late this year or early, like in January.
Yeah.
But haven't decided what I want to do yet. I feel like I want to put it out now. It wouldn't take me long to edit.
No.
But like nobody's doing anything in the winter, and I feel like it's just a great time to like keep people excited.
Yeah. Well, people might, I don't know when it'll be released or anything, but a little bit of the footage might be on a Big Frig series called My Way of Life. I don't know. I'll be putting it together, so I don't know, and I haven't started the edit process yet, so I don't know what footage I'll be using, but you might see a few snippets from that hunt
early
in that video if Big Frig releases it before Jordan does.
Because that was part of a project for them.
Yep.
And a few of our other hunts this year are part of projects for them.
Yep.
I'm really excited about Big Frig. Is a cooler company here in South Dakota. They've been around for a while now.
Yep. But
killer good products, amazing prices, obviously local.
Great people
for us, and great ownership. Just good dudes. And so fun to be able to do some projects like these for them. So yeah, you might catch some of that stuff early if you're watching their page. So jump on over to Big Frig and keep an eye out on that too. So awesome. Have a great rest of your day. Of course, from a small business perspective, if you love this, share it with your friends. Make a screenshot, post it on Facebook, post it on Instagram stories, whatever it is, and tag us. And always shoot over questions if you got them. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great rest of your day.